Are you ready for? Are you ready for?
In today's video, we're going to talk about tips and tricks for each of the killers in Dead by Daylight. We'll roll right through the list of killers, starting with Trapper. Watch for Trapper's traps in tall grasses, in strong loops, near pallets, vaults, and hooks. If he's a smart Trapper, he's going to put traps down in areas he knows that the survivors are going to run through. Putting a trap at a survivor who is on hook is classic, along with, of course, putting one at pallets and vaults, especially Kill Shack. It's smart to check at the top of the match for a Trapper add-on called Bloody Coil. You will know that it is Bloody Coil when you disarm the trap and you become injured. When the killer is in chase, it's smart to undo traps while he's busy. When in chase with Trapper, it is smart to sort of take off and W key to the next set of tiles or some sort of loop, because it's going to take him a short time for his animation while he sets the trap down. It's a smart time to try to get away. My last tip for Trapper is keep your eyes glued to the ground, because just like me, I'm sure your ankles are magnetic. The Wraith. With him, you need to listen and watch for crows that will fly off when the Wraith is cloaked. It's kind of a good giveaway if he's heading your way. When he's close by you and he is cloaked, the best way to describe what he sounds like is a pug. He kind of sounds a little snorty, and it's hard to sort of place what he sounds like, but a pug-nosed dog is the best I know how. The Wraith will try to body block you at windows and pallets while he's cloaked, because it's going to take time for him to uncloak. It's pretty unsafe for you at that point to make it to a pallet or another loop, and he knows it. Try not to let him put you in a position that he can body block you while he's uncloaking. You can sort of tell Wraith is about to do this because he'll try to get ahead of you to beat you to the pallet or the vault. And it's not because he's just trying to cut you off, but he's hoping to get the body block in with the uncloak, because he really has cut you off and has made the tile unsafe. When Wraith uncloaks, he has a speed boost. So because of that, and making the tile unsafe by body blocking, that is when you'll pretty much just have to take the hit. Wraith can be a little spooky, so just keep your ears and your eyes out, because you'll also see he kind of looks like a mirage when he's coming at you. So those are the best tips I have for the Wraith, but he most certainly can be a scary killer. The Hillbilly. The Hillbilly recently had some updates, so I'm sure you're going to see him in the fog quite a bit. Take advantage of loops with tight corners, and try not to run in the open against Billy. If it's a good Billy that can make a 90-degree turn, take blinds wider so he's not quite expecting it. He's going to expect the survivor to hug the loop as tight as possible, and that can really only help him sometimes, depending, as long as the loop has some structure sticking out from it. While Billy still gets stuck after the update, it's not quite as bad as it used to be. He also has some new auditory warnings to let you know that he is fully charged with his chainsaw. But remember too that him coming at you now is a lot quieter than it used to be. While in chase with Billy, taking a last second change of direction is hard for Billy to follow if he's using his chainsaw and not M1ing. Being erratic in chase with Billy is probably your best way to survive against him. The Nurse. Breaking line of sight so she has to predict your movement is probably the best way to play against Nurse. Don't be afraid to walk when she is blinking to throw off her distance. It's hard for her to tell then for how long or how short she might have to blink to land a hit. Remember, she can see inside lockers if she phases through them. She also can carry an add-on that if she phases through the survivor will scream. Being unpredictable at pallets and vaults is a great way to play against her. Faking things like running out of pallet and deciding last second to backtrack can help to throw off Nurse in what direction you might be going, because that is not something a predictable survivor would do. I think the scariest add-on for Nurse is her 3-blink add-on. It's rare and you don't always see it, but it will scare you when she lands that 3rd blink on you. The Shape. Michael Myers is probably one of my favorite killers, especially if he's a Scratch or a Vanity Mirror Myers. It's hard to tell right off the bat if Mikey is a aura reading Mikey with a Scratch Mirror or a Vanity Mirror add-on. A Scratch Mirror Mikey will never tear up, but a Vanity Mirror Myers will tear up only to T1. If it's a Scratch or a Vanity, try to keep your distance, create space, as their movement speed is slower and their lunge is a lot shorter. When trying to heal, choose an area that is open so that you can see him coming. If you're facing a Tombstone Myers, it's going to take a lot longer for Mikey to juice you to get up to those tiers. And if he hits those tiers, sometimes he never even gets out of them. He could be an infinite T3 Mikey, he could even be an infinite Tombstone Mikey. If you really don't want to get tombstoned by Mikey, I don't know why you wouldn't want to get the lead pipe from Michael, but forcing Mike to rip you off a gen or a totem, out of a locker. You could be trying to open a chest or sabotage a hook. There are all ways to make Michael rip you from those actions and not actually grab you in the sense of a tombstone grabs you if you were standing, not doing any actions. Michael may not be happy if you pull this because he's going to want his Mori or his tombstone. It may result in you getting bled out. When in chase with Mikey, try using short walled loops so that you can see him just as much as he can see you, as long as he's scratch or a vanity. If Mikey is tearing up and he's trying to get T3, you don't want him to be able to see you at all times. This is when we say he's juicing you. The Hag. Hag matches are always scarier than I expect them to be, every single time I get into them. Crouch walking up to a trap and wiping them away is the only way to get rid of them without running through her traps. Just like Trapper, she's going to set them up again at loops and vaults, pallets, and at hooks. She's also going to put them by her totems if she's running any kind of hexes, or at generators that are really pumping and they're close to being finished. It's a good idea to get rid of traps while she's in chase or carrying another survivor to a hook. Sometimes it's easier to just run through all her traps while she's busy in chase or carrying a survivor. But if she's in chase and all of her traps aren't going off, there is a likely chance that she's going to leave that chase and come see what's going on with all of her traps. The difference between Trapper and the Hag's traps are that the Hag's traps can be more in a cluster and closer together than Trapper's traps actually can be. When the Hag is setting traps, take that time to create distance between yourself and the Hag. The Hag is busy setting up an area like Shack or by a 3-gen. It's a good time to try to take chase and maybe get rid of all her traps and just run through them and sort of take the sacrifice for the team. It's going to confuse the Hag and she's going to have to make a decision whether she stays in chase or if she decides to go back and reset those traps. But when I tell you I get jump scared by the Hag every time I face her, that little shorty gets me every single time. The Doctor. Doc's biggest counters are locker diving before he does his big shock or pre-dropping safe pallets before he's able to use his shock therapy ability. You can hear Doc starts to sort of wind up for a big blast because there's a long auditory warning of his static blast charging up, for a lack of a better way to describe it. A good Doc can be really tough and he knows when to shock you to keep you from dropping a pallet. If the pallet is already pre-dropped, Doc will try to shock you in the sense so that it keeps you in animation and you can't vault the pallet. He will backtrack and hit you at the top of the pallet rather than thinking that you're vaulting it because he knows you can. Some of the dead giveaway times during the match that Doc is going to do his really big blast is at the top of the match. He wants to know where the survivors are, especially if he's not running a perk like Lethal. He's going to use his blast after he hooks somebody because if he's not running a perk like Barbecue, it's a great way to find out where survivors are. Even if he doesn't shock them within the radius, he knows they're somewhere outside of the radius and he won't search within it. If you get shocked by Doc 3 times in a short amount of time, you will have to snap out of it because you're in Madness 3. It's essentially the 3rd tier of Doc's shock ability of creating a time that you have to use an animation to snap out of this madness and be able to use your item or drop pallets, be able to get in and out of lockers. Something you will be able to do while you're still in Madness 3 is you will be able to still unhook a survivor. The biggest surprise with Doc is what's called his hallucinations around the map. When you start to get into Madness 2, you will see an apparition of Doc at certain areas while you're running around with this Madness tier that has affected you. It can definitely throw you off and think that the Doc all of a sudden is just there, or you come around a corner and there's an apparition or a hallucination, and it'll scare you thinking that Doc all of a sudden just turned up in your loop when you weren't even in chase to begin with. The Huntress. The Huntress is my top tier favorite killer. She is my P100, and yes, I am boasting about that. I worked very hard to get her, but she's also somebody I really love to face. The number one piece of advice I have to give you against Huntress is do not drop a pallet against her. It is muscle memory as a survivor while in chase, thinking that the killer is close enough to you to at least get the stun with the pallet or at least create some safe distance between the two of you. You can't do that with Huntress. She is very used to survivors dropping pallets on her, and she normally is pretty quick to take that step back and nail you with a hatchet across the pallet that did not save your life. It's a perfect time for a survivor to get caught in an animation, and they can't duck or get away from her at all while she winds up and just lands that hatchet at your face. When in chase with Huntress, try using taller loops or practice ducking before she throws them. If you're in a taller loop area, it's going to be harder for her to be able to land hatchets across items and objects. If you're in a lower stacked loop, it's easier for her to see you and be able to land hatchets. Ducking when you think she is about to throw that hatchet is the best way to fight against her while you're on the opposite side of the loop from her. Running in open areas, just like Billy, is going to give her a chance to land a hatchet against you. If you are caught in the open, try moving unpredictably because it's going to throw her off and she's not going to know where to predict to throw her hatchets. Huntresses, for the most part, like to use aura builds. They can see you a lot of times because it gives them an area and an idea of where to throw a hatchet. Some of the rarer add-ons with Huntress is an Eerie Head Hatchet. The Eerie Head Hatchet is a hatchet that she can only carry one of, and if she lands it against you, you instantly go down. It is a one-shot hatchet, and it is so fun to pair with Wooden Fox so that when Huntress opens a locker, she is silent, she's insidious once she opens the locker. Keeping Huntress in your sights while you're looping her is a good way to fight against her. It's going to give you an idea of when she might line up a hatchet against you, and again, don't forget, she also has an auditory warning when she winds up a hatchet. You'll hear almost like a metal clinging sort of sound, and that'll give you an idea of when she's about to let that hatchet go, or at least when that hatchet is fully charged. A fully charged hatchet is going to come at you a whole lot more quickly. Also, don't forget that Huntress has a lullaby along with the terror radius. Her lullaby is going to give you an idea of where on the map she might be, but her terror radius is going to give you a much more specific idea of where she is. Don't get confused thinking that just because you only hear her lullaby, that she is not close by and that she can't get you. Because a silent Huntress is a scary Huntress. We'll go over more killers in the next video that we do for tips and tricks, but for now we went through Trapper all the way to Huntress. So I hope maybe that you learned something that you didn't know before. And until next time, good luck, have fun in the fog.
Let's go!